This is the world's biggest EV range test. 27 different electric cars driven from sea level all the way up to about just over 1,000 meters elevation. So they're driving them up a hill, right? Not all the way. Obviously, a lot of the driving is flat, but eventually they end up 1,000 meters, about 3,000 feet above sea level. You would think that range would be worse than WLTP. You'd think the range would be less than what the manufacturers say, but actually in most cases, it was more. In some cases, it was less. So here's the full true story on which electric cars are going to give you more range than advertised. You'd be shocked by how many there are, and which of them are going to give you less range than advertised. Okay, guys, I love these tests. This is one of the biggest tests in the world. 27 different electric cars tested, compared to each other. And the crazy thing is, the temperatures were pretty cold. I mean, it was between 7 degrees Celsius and a maximum of 17 degrees Celsius. And these cars, most of them, outperformed their WLTP range. They pretty much got around about EPA range, most of them, not all of them, but some of them did incredibly well. Let's have a look at the 27 cars tested. Most of these cars you can buy in Europe and Australia. Not most of them in the United States, unfortunately, but some of them you can buy in America. Here's the full list. Here's the winners. I'm going to compile them from first, second, third. I've actually put together this list. This list does not exist on the internet unless you do it yourself and you go into, I don't know, Google spreadsheets and put all the data in yourself. So we've done this for you. You can see it all listed here. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. Great to have you with us. Now, if you'd like to book a paid consultation, you can do so, and I'll put a link in the description below. If you want advice on what electric car to buy, solar systems, all that kind of stuff, you can do that. Now, I should point out that that functionality will be available on our website very, very soon, within the next few days. Okay, the 27 list. This test, first of all, let's have a look at the parameters for this test. And I should mention that, yes, you are going to get different results with different cars on different days, on different test tracks. Yes, of course. But the great thing about this is, in Norway, they do this testing at the same time, right? At the same time, all cars are tested the same way, the same day. It's really probably the best test in the world at giving you an indicative idea of which cars are going to give you the most range, right, in the real world. Because really, yeah, you can test an EV, and we see all this stuff all the time. I mean, inside EVs, they're constantly doing this. Oh, look, this EV outperformed its range, amazing. But they don't mention the fact that on that day, that it had a perfect tailwind. It was 25 degrees Celsius. The humidity in the air was this. So it's really misleading when you see an EV get a certain range, unless it is in a comparison test where it's compared to its rivals on the same day. Then you get a good idea of the parameters. In this test, they drove the cars until they lost engine power. So it didn't just say zero. This is why it's extremely misleading. Some EVs, they'll die before they say zero, right? This is a fact. Guys, you don't even notice with your own car until you actually try it. Trust me. With my Xpeng, I drove about 25 kilometers after it was said zero. So you can drive it. But some cars, you can't do that. Teslas, you can. You can get usually about 30 kilometers after it says zero. Many models, you can't. They'll even die before it says zero. So it's worth keeping that in mind. You can be a little bit misled with an EV by thinking it has the amount of range that it actually doesn't. If you drive it until it stops, that gives you a good idea of what it's actually really capable of. Now, they also tested to show you the numbers at 20% and 10%. But to be honest, those numbers were pretty even with most cars. The range that they exceeded above that percentage was, pretty equal with each other. Now, there's a few that did better than others in terms of getting beyond the 0% mark, which was Tesla. The Tesla Model 3, you can see here on the bar graph, the Tesla Model 3 achieved 720 kilometers of range. It was the second longest EV in the test and one of the cheapest. So pretty amazing result. But you can see here the difference between 10% and 0% is bigger than, say, for example, the Porsche Macan. The Macan 4, when it hit 10%, right, it only went an additional 66 kilometers, right? Big difference, because when the Tesla hit 10%, all the way up to 0%, it actually went an additional 96 kilometers. Big difference for some of these models. For example, the Zeekr 7X got great range. It did 593 kilometers, which was really good. But the difference between getting to 10%, it's got 10% left, it was at 543. It did an additional 50 kilometers for the remaining 10%. This is what I mean. The only way you're going to really know how far your EV can drive, you think you know when it's done 10%, you honestly really do not know. It's really kind of an assumption you're making. You're making a guess. You don't know when your EV hits 10% how much more range it's going to have until you actually try it out and you test it. So here we know, number one was the Lucid Air. I don't really know why they included the Lucid Air in this test. It's only available in a very limited number of places. It's very expensive. I personally don't really think it's all that relevant, but it is interesting and it is an amazing feat that a car can do this kind of range. If you have a lot of money and live in certain countries, you can get a Lucid Air and it'll do 828 kilometers in the real world. That's incredible. Americans, that's 517 miles. Second place was the Tesla Model 3 long range. That's the rear wheel drive version. So it's not the most expensive Tesla, not by a long shot actually. That did 729 kilometers, which is 453 miles. And that means both the Tesla and the Lucid Air substantially outperformed their WLTP numbers. So what this means is you can see the Lucid Air did really well, but it actually did 13.3% less kilometers and miles than its WLTP. So it's actually rated to be able to do 597 miles. It didn't do that. It did 517. So that was minus 13.3%. The Tesla Model 3 is rated for 702 kilometers of range, which is about 436 miles, but it did more than that. It outperformed by plus 3.8%. Another outperformer was the BMW iX. Very expensive though, sort of similar to a Lucid Air. Most people probably can't afford one, but anyway, the BMW iX did 695 kilometers or 432 miles, which is a pretty damn long way, right? Its estimated range, its WLTP range is 668 kilometers, so it outperformed by nearly 30 kilometers, or around 4%. Polestar 3. The Polestar 3 also did very well. It underperformed its numbers by 4%, but it's still got, I think, what is a really impressive range for what is, I think, one of the best luxury cars you can get on the market. It did 667 kilometers, and that's 414 miles of range. WLTP is 695 or 432 miles. In fifth place was another fairly pricey EV, the Audi A6 Avant e-tron. You can see the Tesla Model 3 has done incredibly well to beat these expensive cars. A6 Avant e-tron did 655 kilometers. That's 407 miles. And its WLTP is 663. So it underperformed, but only by 1%. That's a really good result. The Audi A6 Avant e-tron was therefore in fifth place. In sixth place was the Tesla Model Y, which massively overperformed its WLTP numbers. Tesla have, I'm not sure what they've done, but in the new versions, the new Model Y, the new Model 3, these cars have become insanely efficient. The Model Y, 653 kilometers is the distance it drove. That is 406 miles. And that's against a WLTP range of 586 or 364 miles, meaning it outperformed by 11.4%. I think you've got to give the win to the Model Y in this whole list because it's outperformed by the most by a mile of any car on this list. Next was the Polestar 4. The Polestar 4 did 624 kilometers. That's 388 miles against an expected range or WLTP of 600 kilometers. So it did 24 kilometers more than what Polestar says it will. Great result. That means it was plus 4% for the Polestar 4. Ford Capri. The Ford Capri EV, which I don't think you can buy in anywhere except for Europe, unfortunately, that did 615 kilometers. A very, very, very good result. That's 382 miles. against a WLTP of 627 kilometers or 390 miles. So it underperformed, but not by much, by minus 1.9%. The Volkswagen ID.7 GTX was next in ninth place. It did 595 kilometers versus, that's about 370 miles. And that's versus a WLTP of 568 kilometers. So it outperformed by 4.8%, which is pretty damn impressive. Another impressive car here. And I say this car came second in terms of the actual numbers it's outperformed by. The Zeekr 7X, a remarkable result. It did 593 kilometers. That is 368 miles, right? That's this is a big car. It's even bigger than a Tesla Model Y. It's about probably 5% bigger. And that means it outperformed its expected range by 9.6%. It also has the fastest charging of any car on this list. So yeah, I mean, the Zeekr 7X, you can see why so many people are interested in buying one of these. Plus 9.6%, 593 kilometers of range in the real world. Yeah, great result. Number 11, the Opel Grandland, 583 kilometers. It outperformed its estimated range by 2.5%. Number 12, a Volvo EX90 EV, 577 kilometers. That's 358 miles. It outperformed by 5%. In 13th place was the Kia EV3, 573 kilometers. It underperformed by 2.8%. That's 356 miles. So Kia underperformed at 2.8%. Next, the BYD Tang. Tang did really well. It actually listed 572 kilometers in total. That's 355 miles. And that means it outperformed by 7.9%. But I would not be buying that BYD Tang. I would absolutely not be buying it because BYD's new Tang, the new Tang L in China, destroys this car. It has a new BYD Blade battery, which everyone's been waiting for. It's capable of charging at 1,000 kilowatt. It's got a 1,000 volt architecture. That is not this car. This is the old version. So yeah, wait for the new version. The Porsche Macan was next. Very disappointing result, I think, from Porsche. I just think for this kind of money, you should get more range than this. 544 kilometers. That means it actually did the range it's meant to get. That's 338 miles. But I still think that it should be outperforming for a car that costs several $100,000. And considering it's, the Xiaomi SU7 is beating it now around racetracks all around the world, and it's a fraction of the price. It's like a 1/3 of the price. I think the Macan really needs to improve faster or Porsche's in a bit of trouble. And you can see Porsche's car sales have been declining very, very quickly. This is one of the reasons why. They need to innovate faster. 16th was the Ford Explorer EV, which is actually a really good car, I think. It did 537 kilometers, and that's 334 miles. That means it did underperform, though, by 5%. The BYD C-Line 7 was next. It did quite well. It's still, I think its range should be a bit more considering the size of its battery. It's an 80 kilowatt hour battery. But anyhow, it did 523 kilometers. That's 325 miles. And it actually overperformed by plus 4%. So well done in that respect. The Hongqi EHS7, which is obviously a Chinese luxury SUV, 524 kilometers, 326 miles. It underperformed by 3%, but pretty close. The Peugeot E5008, 516 kilometers. It actually did incredibly well. It outperformed by 5.7%. The MG S5, this is an interesting one because this is available in Australia. This is available in many countries, Thailand, obviously China, Southeast Asia, Malaysia. I think it's coming to the UK and Europe. MG S5 did quite well, 492 kilometers. This is the bigger battery, by the way. This is the 60 kilowatt hour battery. That's 306 miles of range. And this car is actually very well priced, so it did well, and it outperformed its range by 5.8%. By the way, that's a lithium iron phosphate battery, a 60 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate battery. 21st place, the Mercedes-Benz G-Class. Can you believe the MG S5 budget car beat the Mercedes-Benz G-Class? Ridiculous. The G-Class has a massive, massive battery as well. It's incredibly inefficient. It did 467 kilometers. That's 290 miles, but that was plus 2.6%. You can see why the G-Class hasn't sold though. I mean, it's ludicrously expensive and it only gets 467 kilometers of range in the real world if you drive the battery until it dies. I love it though. It's cool. It just needs a better battery. The Voyage Courage was 22nd. It did 451 kilometers of range. That's, by the way, a Chinese brand. and it outperformed by 2.7%. Next was the Lotus Emeya. The Lotus Emeya did 450 kilometers. It outperformed by 3.4%, followed by the Volkswagen ID Buzz, 454 kilometers. It actually did exactly what it's claimed to do, 282 miles. It's claimed to be 283, so it basically did it. MG Cyberster was next. It underperformed. It did 429 kilometers. That's 266 miles. That's minus 3.2%. And then in last place was the Skoda Elroq with a total of 262 miles, which is 422 kilometers. That was basically what it said in terms of WLTP. The big takeaway here, guys, before I get into the details of some of these cars, the big takeaway is this. Every car here was very close to achieving its WLTP. Either it marginally underachieved or it overachieved. Looking at the numbers of cars that overachieved, though, 15 of the 27 overachieved. So 15 overachieved, 12 underachieved, but a couple of them underachieved by like 0.5%. There's one of them, another one 1.2%, another one, as you can see, 1.9%. So really, almost every car here actually either got what it claims to or it overachieved. And this is a big change. I mean, EVs in the past used to be, you couldn't get close to achieving the WLTP, but that's completely changed now. Manufacturers are being more realistic about the abilities of their EVs. Now, of course, in China, the CLTC range is ridiculous. You'd never achieve that unless you're hypermiling, sitting behind a truck or something. But WLTP is pretty good. EPA range is even better. EPA range in the United States is you're almost always guaranteed to get it unless you're driving really aggressively. Now, guys, I've rearranged this list for you showing best to worst WLT percentage. This shows you the cars that outperformed their WLTP numbers. So in first place was the Tesla Model Y, plus 11.43%. Second, Zeekr 7X, plus 9.6%. Third, the Tang, plus 7.9%. Fourth, the MG S5, plus 5.8%. Next was the Peugeot E5008, plus 5.7%. The Volkswagen ID7, plus 4.76%. The BMW iX, plus 4%. Polestar 4, plus 4%. The Tesla Model 3, plus 3.8%. The Lotus Emeya, plus 3.4%. The Voyar Courage, plus 2.65%, Mercedes-Benz G-Class plus 2.6%, Opel Grandland, Porsche Macan, Volkswagen ID Buzz. But looking at the ones that had the biggest minuses, well, the Lucid Air, even though it had the most range on this test, it had the biggest minus. It was minus 13.3%. The Volvo EX90 was minus 5%. The Ford Explorer minus 5%. The Polestar 3 minus 4%. The MG Cyberster minus 3. Now, the others were so close that I think you might as well be up to say that they did their WLTP. But those were the interesting. I think, to be honest, all these cars performed well except the Lucid Air. The Lucid Air was the only one, even though it did a massive amount of range. You're paying for it, though. It's very expensive. Even though it did a massive amount of range, I mean, getting 13.3% less than your claim is a pretty big downside, I think, because you're paying for this car. You're really paying for it. My big takeaway from this test is that all these cars did incredibly well, except the Lucid, I think. And it really shows you the incredibly good value of the Tesla Model Y, the Tesla Model 3, the Zeekr 7X, and the MG S5. Other cars in this test that I think are really good, the Polestar 4 did very well. But the value proposition from a lot of these cars now, especially the Chinese ones and Teslas, is incredible. And as you can see in this list, really BMW, they did pretty well. Audi did pretty well, but you're really paying for it. There's just not much advantage anymore to buying a German car, buying a luxury car. They're not really that much better than these other cars, which are not luxury cars. And for example, the Zeekr 7X, that actually is a luxury car, but it's not priced like one. Guys, what are your thoughts? Which of these cars interest you the most? Now, I have done videos on these tests before, and I'll put a link in the description to last year's test. You can see which ones did well in that test. As usual, the Teslas probably were in the top 5. They did very, very well. Some cars did poorly. Mercedes-Benz did quite poorly in that test. But here's the thing, guys. EVs are getting better. They are getting better. So if this video provided value to you, please share it with your friends. Get it out there. Get that information out there. Let's get more people driving electric cars. When you see what kind of range you can get, why would you not drive one? I mean, this is the best time ever for electric cars. Yeah, they're going to be better next year and the year after, but still, today is pretty damn good.